Yes. So the global outlook for maritime transition continues to be good. Even though that right now we have a bit of sort of tension in geopolitical developments that may give you the impression that we are holding back on the transition, actually numbers prove that we are not. So if you track the emissions from the maritime industry, it's more or less been constant in spite of trade growth since 10 years ago. And if you divide it by the number of the amount of cargo transport, you actually see that the emissions per cargo transported is on a steady decline, signaling that the fleet is transforming, becoming more efficient, more energy efficiencies and operational efficiencies is being built into the fleet. At the same time, what we also see is that in terms of the new fuels that we need for the vessel, which is the next step beyond energy efficiency, is something where investments continue to happen at land. So if you track the investments in energy transition technologies on land, they also scale at exponential rate these days. And that is in spite of maybe the climate agenda moving a little bit down on the global agenda and being replaced, when you talk about energy policies, being replaced by terms like energy resilience and energy security. But those also act as forceful drivers in energy transition technologies. So we're very pleased about the development and in terms of decarbonization of the maritime industry and see it being on a very positive trajectory. So what we see is that three distinct pathways are sort of opening up and becoming reality. What we also see is that complexity is rising for this fleet, whereby the number of fuel options will be multiple and more diverse than what we see today. Also, these new fuels will reach the fleet in waves, with the most sort of ready to use being first, and then the more complex one that require new infrastructure will arrive later. On the three pathways, we see a liquid pathway, which is of course also what we have today. Most of the vessels, they operate on fuel oil, where they will have bio-oil as a drop-in, making use of the same technology and infrastructure as fuel oil, with an opportunity to do further decarbonization with alcohols, where we see now ethanol start to play a role and have a potential in the methanol-enabled part of the vessel, of the fleet. What we also see is that a gaseous pathway is opening up. We have a significant number of new build now being methane fueled. And we see that trend continuing as we move through the transition. In the gaseous pathway, obviously you start with methane, the fossil variant, often referred to as LNG, where again, same as with the liquid, you can drop in a bio variant of methane, biogas, and thereby start your decarbonization journey. What we also see is that these methane-enabled vessels, they are ready to take on board ammonia when that becomes a scalable fuel for the fleet. So, and then the third pathway we see is direct electrification, really benefiting from a significant development journey of batteries, where we see this for short sea and for regional shipping as something also that will play a role in the transition. Short midterm, definitely biofuels will be in the shape and form of drop-in, taking advantage of the fact they can reuse technologies and infrastructure. More long-term, we see that, in particular on the gaseous fuel side, that ammonia will start to enter the mix as that low-emission market for ammonia starts to develop. The industry players, they are responding well to the regulatory that actually is in place. And the regulation that is in place, the most prominent example is FuelEU Maritime, that exposes the industry to both the European Emissions Trading Scheme in the shape and form of a carbon tax, but also, and maybe more importantly, to a so-called fuel standard that forces a certain amount of low-emission fuel into the fuel mix. The IMO regulation, we have yet to see the shape and form of that as negotiations are ongoing, but it is clear that a global regulation is something of preference to the industry, creating a much more transparent and system to act in and a level playing field across. as opposed to a patchwork of national and regional regulation, which will be more bureaucratic to navigate. Right now, we see the industry taking a pause while we wait for IMO to agree upon how they will take the next step forward. But back to FuelEU Maritime, we really see that preparing to make a difference, in particular as of 2030, when the fuel standard will increase to 6%. We will see an effect on that, on how fuel starts to enter the market. As one example of that, we saw a very recent investment decision in an e-methanol plant, US-based from ET Fuels, that was directly targeting the European maritime fuel market 2030 and afterwards to really address a potential undersupply situation of low-emission fuels into that market. So, good response and investment actually ongoing. There are several gaps, and I will mention 3 here that are sort of the main ones that we work with at our Center for Zero Carbon Shipping. So first and foremost, we need to establish a framework where the maritime industry is able to compete for the low-emission fuels. We have that in Europe now with the FuelEU Maritime. The IMO Net Zero framework will also establish an ability for maritime to compete in established market for low-emission fuels. So that is an absolute requirement to create this ability to navigate there. The second thing is that maritime industry relies on energy systems to deliver the fuel, and those energy systems are matured and developed on land in synergy with other industry sectors. So the maritime industry has an obligation and a responsibility to orient itself towards which energy systems are actually being developed over time and how can they navigate those to secure themselves the fuels which they compete for with the regulation in place. And what we see is that these markets, they develop a little in different ways in different regions, where in some parts electrification and biomass access is high, other parts it will still be fossil-based, maybe combined with carbon capture, and then you can also have other routings. So the maritime industry needs to navigate that and needs to navigate those synergetic effects with other industry segments to see how the systems develop. And then thirdly, I would point at the capabilities inside the maritime industry. Right now we see a change. The energy transition will inform a change in how business is conducted. New technologies, new fuel types will be introduced, which will require that the industry has new ways of operating, new measures of safety. But not only that, also navigating these new markets will require a different way of doing investment planning, a different way of strategizing that allows for slightly more long-term considerations that is currently the status. And those are capabilities that needs to be built and integrated into the maritime community. Also something where we support the community with research and with know-how on how they can mature these capabilities in-house. So energy systems, acceptance of that, regulation in place, preferably global, and capabilities inside the maritime industry.